or on our website, please do let me know, and of course we won't. Okay, brilliant. So sit back and enjoy. Over to you, Angela. Angela, you're on mute.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. A very cheery start this morning, Caroline. So you've kicked us off well. I'll pass over to our speakers very quickly. This is our third health and safety chat. They've been incredibly popular. So there's a real focus on health and safety at the moment. So it's been incredibly topical. Our speakers are Sean Cassane from Wilson James, and we've got Robin Ditchfield and Claire Preston from Engie, and we're delighted that they've joined us this morning. So thank you, Claire, and thank you, Robin. But we'll hear from Sean first instance. I'll pass over to you, Sean. Is your mute on as well, Sean?
Morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, yeah. We can now. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Angela. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this sort of health and safety chat that we're having today. Just a bit of background about me. I did 27 years in the regular army in the Royal Artillery, and I was in the Royal Artillery Band as a musician. So heavily involved in state ceremonial and concerts and keeping the forces personnel entertained. When I finished my career in 2005, I joined in 79. I then went into the Royal Yeomanry in the City of London, which was very close to where I worked, and joined the regiment there as well, and did 13 years. So 40 years with an ID card, finishing at the end of 2018, really due to a knee injury, which precluded me from doing a lot of the physical aspects of things. Anyway, while I was in the army, I really didn't have anything to do with health and safety. When I went to the Career Transition Partnership, it seemed that health and safety qualification was the thing to do 12 or 15 years ago now, due to the fact that you could take it anywhere in any type of business. So it was a very constructive way to spend my resettlement. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I did a 3-week residential course at Aldershot at the time and did my NEBOSH General Certificate. I had an idea then that I would go into the world outside the armed forces, that nice cocoon that they give us, into the real world, and I'd be walking around with a hard hat or a high vis on with a clipboard, telling everybody what to do and how to do it safely. Little did I know that that was not how the real world works. Luckily, I had a friend who was the head of health and safety for a construction firm called Galliard. They do a lot of house building, flats, conversions of commercial buildings into residential properties. And he told me that I would need site experience before I could go anywhere with a health and safety qualification in that sort of area of business. So, and luckily for me, there was a position going as a logistics manager on a hotel build at Waterloo. This is back in 2006. I took over from a chap who'd also been in the forces, and we had a few days handover, and then it was a 14-story, 214-bedroom Park Plaza hotel, and I was the logistics manager straight off. Bearing in mind that logistics is a thing that the armed forces do pretty well, and it was just getting the right kit in the right place at the right time for the right people, and managing all of those expectations of all the different trades. So it was a steep learning curve. 2 years, a 2-year project. Unfortunately, took us to 2008 when there was a big crash and all 30 of the permanent staff on that project were made redundant. So I'd been in one job for 27 years. I'd come out of the forces. 2 years later, I'd been made redundant from a job that I thought was very secure. So that was a bit of a blow. My wife supported me wholeheartedly in looking for another job. I went on to some agencies, put my CV in there, which was a really good move for me. I got picked up by Wilson James and asked to come in for an interview. Quite a stringent interview process, and 4 interviews later, I was offered a job as a construction logistics manager working for Wilson James in Shaftesbury Avenue on one of their projects. With all of this sort of transition into the world of work outside the armed forces, a couple of things that I realised were very important, and that is to make sure that you sell yourself and don't sell yourself short. You've got an absolute wealth of experience, and I'm sure you've been told this on your career transition process, but it's very true. And always try to allude to the fact that you've got experience in certain aspects of work and put it into civilian speak, if you understand what I'm saying. So, you know, you may have been in charge of millions of pounds worth of equipment, a lot of personnel, a lot of major responsibilities, and just make sure that you don't sell yourself short. And another thing that I found was that I did actually start my first job outside the forces on a lower wage than I should have. The company asked me what my expectations were, and I took into account that I was getting my pension straight away, as I'd done over 22 years, done 26 and a half years, in fact. And I was counting my pension as part of my wage package, and I shouldn't have done that. And so when I came to Wilson James, I ended up with, after 2 years experience in the business, I came in and had quite a nice sizable wage rise, which was great. With health and safety on site being something that I was interested in, as a construction logistics manager, I started helping out the safety team within Wilson James, and eventually, after 8 years on various projects, including 3 years at the Athletes Village for the Olympics, which was a fantastic experience, working for under contract for certain companies like Coney, who do lifts and escalators, a big project opposite Cannon Street Station. They're called the Walbrook Building. Various things, one new change at St Paul's, things like that. I then was moving into looking at being a health and safety champion for Wilson James, and also being a health and safety representative on health and safety forums that we run. This was all noted by the senior management, and the security division for my company decided that they were taking away the health and safety responsibility from site level or a contract manager level, and they needed a dedicated health and safety manager. And so I applied for the job. I think there were about 9 or 10 applicants, and again, quite a stringent process for coming into this role, but I was offered the role at the end of 2015. Since then, I've been involved in all 3 divisions of Wilson James, which are aviation, construction, logistics, and security. And aviation, we have contracts at Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, Manchester, Liverpool, and Belfast airports. We do all of the passenger assistance for the whole of Heathrow, and that's about 1,000 employees. We do the same at Gatwick, which is about 500 employees. So they are a big part of Wilson James's remit. Construction logistics, the airports have got construction work going on all the time, refurbing things, especially in the departure lounges and things out on the pan as well. So it's a very involved job. I did the general certificate, but I am involved in construction as well, and that's come to me through experience of working in construction environments. I'm currently working for towards my grad IOSH, with a view then to getting my CM IOSH in about 2 years' time. So I'm just completing my grad IOSH course at the moment. It's an MVQ level 6, which will give me that extra level. After my NEBOSH was completed, I then applied for Tech IOSH because of the work I'd been doing, and I was granted that status by IOSH themselves, purely down to the type of work I'd been doing. Recommendations for when you're working out in the wider world, I would actually say that you really need to be very, very careful about how you approach people and expect them to behave with you. There is a certain expectation when you're in the armed forces that you will ask people to do things and they will probably do them. And if they don't do them, they will be found out very quickly and, you know, they'll suffer the consequences. However, if you take people at their word in the wider world, and this doesn't count for everybody, you may come unstuck. I recommend that you get everything written down. Email people to say, just to confirm that we've discussed this and this is the process that's going to happen, and they can respond positively or negatively to you. Don't leave things just as a gentleman's agreement. I've seen people fall foul of that on numerous occasions out in the civilian world. Make sure that you put yourself about. Make sure that you get involved with all levels of management and take advice. As always a good one from a perspective of health and safety. If you're joining a safety team, make sure you're a team player, obviously. Get fully involved in health and safety forums and being health and safety champions on site and things like that. As I said, it's a go anywhere qualification, health and safety. So those of you that are thinking about that, I would say it's a really great opportunity in the world of work at the moment. Wilson James, who I work for, we've got a team with 9 safety managers and advisors across 7,000 staff. We have some 280 to 300 different sites in the UK. In the security division alone, when we don't do the G4S and Securitas stuff, but we're involved in companies like Google and Facebook and Snapchat, BMW, Red Bull Racing, Santander, Prudential, Japanese and Chinese banks in the City of London. We've got a massive remit of security, physical security, on-site control rooms, patrolling, customer interaction and things like that, reception duties, ITV, BBC, Television Centre is one of ours as well. So we've got a really wide programme. And if any of you want to email me after this for a bit of advice, or if you're based anywhere near some of our sites, we may be able to get you onto site for a look round, spend a day with one of the safety team to see how things work. So that's about it from me. Obviously, we're going to have a Q&A at the end, but I hope that was a little bit of an insight into how I got into health and safety from being in the forces. Thanks very much.
And that was brilliant. Thank you very much. Really, really insightful in terms of everything that Wilson James is doing. So thank you for that. Okay, could I ask Robin and Claire to join us, and we'll turn our screens off. Hi, Robin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
So, good morning, everyone. My name's Rob Ditchfield. I served in the Royal Navy as a marine engineer for 22 years. And when I came out, I then transitioned from the engineering in the Navy to engineering in civistry. So I've got a bit of a presentation which I'll run through. I didn't know whether Claire wanted to say anything before I start this, or whether I'll just go straight into it. You're on mute, Claire.
Gosh, I mean, if I had a penny for every time somebody said that to me, I wouldn't be on this call. I was just going to give a brief introduction about what Engie do and about the job opportunities that we've got available. So I will go after you, Rob, if that's okay.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So I'll just fly straight into a little presentation for everyone. Can you see that, Claire?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'll just start off. So I'll just put something together because there's quite a lot of information, and if anybody wants to take this presentation afterwards for sort of their own memory jogging, then it's fine. I can send it out as a PDF format. So obviously a member of the Royal Navy Marine Engineering Department for 22 years. So I progressed through the ranks, started in 1987 as a stoker, and ended up as a chief stoker, and left the Royal Navy in 2008 as a chief petty officer engineer. Served on various different platforms in the Royal Navy, but generally frigates and destroyers in the Marine Engineering Department. So at that time when I was in the Royal Navy, people were generalist engineers and streamed into electrical and mechanical departments. So I had a broad spectrum of engineering experience within the Navy: electrical generation, propulsion systems, water production, reverse osmosis, lots of stuff that's used currently in Civvy Street anyway. So it was a good grounding from an engineering perspective. But towards the end of my career, when I became a chief petty officer, that's when I started getting more involved with health and safety in the Navy. We have safe systems of work, permit to work systems, lockout, tagout to secure systems before maintenance can take place. And I was sent on formal risk assessor training courses within the Navy. So that was my first exposure to safe systems of work and health and safety. So prior to me leaving the Royal Navy in 2008, I started my career transition with the Transition Partnership. And the first thing that I did was take part in a CV workshop. And I found that very useful. So if you've not been on one yet, I would strongly advise that you do one, because what the guys and girls in the CTP do is look at your job role and advise you what your transferable skills are. Look at the industries or sectors that you could transition to quite easily. They help you develop quite a good CV, which is neutral. It has keywords within it, such as communication, leadership, and then they can target your resettlement after that. So what I did was I realized that I had all the engineering qualifications that I needed and the experience. What I didn't have was, other than the Royal Navy internal risk assessor training certificates, I didn't have an accredited certification. So I much like Sean, I went to the resettlement training camp in Aldershot, and I did the 3-week general NEBOSH certificate. So the first job that I had when I left the Royal Navy was with a company called Engie Power Resources. At the time, I was living in Suffolk, in Bury St Edmunds. As you can tell by my accent, I'm not from there, but that was where my better half was from. So I originally resettled in Suffolk and went to work as my first job in Civvy Street was for a company called Engie Power Resources, as I've said. They operate biomass power stations within the Suffolk and Norfolk areas. And the one that I went to work for was a straw burning power station in Ely in Cambridgeshire. I was a shift team leader, so in charge of a 12-hour shift while I was on shift for that period. Basically responsible for the day-to-day running and operation of the power station. I think I was there for 2 years, and one of the primary roles of a shift team leader is to enact the safe system of work, so ensure that permit to works are issued, risk assessments and method statements are in place and reviewed, and making sure people are working safely. So much like, very similar to what I was doing in the Royal Navy. And when I had the interview for my first job in Civvy Street, I looked at the power station, I looked at the Royal Navy ship, and they're very similar entities. They're both power generation plants, but one has a propulsion system attached to it, the other has a generator attached to it. So that's another little bit of advice. Look at the environment you're going into and see what the similarities are between the current environment you're working in within the military and what you're going to be hopefully going into in Civvy Street as a job. There are similarities, you just need to match them. So when you go into an interview, you can tell the interviewer where your experience will fit into that environment. So that's what I did. I just said it's a ship that doesn't go to sea effectively. From that role, I then went back to my native northeast, where I am now in County Durham. Dalkey built a new biomass power station in County Durham. It was a bespoke build, and it was a waste wood fired biomass power station generating electricity. Again, very similar role, although when I started at the power station, it was still going through its final construction phases and moving into the commissioning phases. And it was very useful to be involved in commissioning. It's something people don't generally get involved in the engineering world. You're either in construction or in your operational engineering. So the commissioning phase was very, very useful because it exposed me to things that I'd never been aware of or exposed to before, such as HAZOPs, hazard operability studies, hazards, safety integrity levels for control systems on power stations, etc. And these are all process safety areas that generally in your military background you might not get involved with. But process safety in an engineering environment in Civvy Street is very, very big. Unfortunately, I was only at Dalkeir, the power station, for 18 months. And that was more to do with the fact that their health and safety, approach to health and safety on that particular plant was very, very poor. Lots of corners were getting cut. It didn't sit well with me. I was in charge of a team of guys, so my responsibility to them was cascaded from the senior management. And if the senior management don't have an appreciation and a good hold on health and safety, the message doesn't go well with the rest of the team. So effectively, I left there. And then I went into the wind industry, working for a company called Natural Power. The reason I went from a power station to the wind industry was because, again, it's an engineering environment. And I was involved with electrical generation, high voltage electrical generation at 11 kV. Most onshore wind farms and some offshore wind farms operate at 11 kV generation. So I already had the experience of electrical switching in an HV environment. And my role within Natural Power was to manage wind farms on behalf of clients. And one of the key roles was as a senior authorized person to carry out isolations and issue safety documents on 11 kV networks. And one of the primary roles was management of health and safety on the wind farms. So the client expected us to manage health and safety on their behalf. So we would manage contractors' health and safety, review RAMs, carry out isolations, carry out lockout tagout on systems to ensure that they were safe, proved electrically dead, issue permits to work, review risk assessments and method statements. So overall health and safety responsibility was delegated by the clients to Natural Power, and then we were assigned regional areas where we would manage the individual wind farms. So I was both onshore and offshore. So as you can see, my exposure to health and safety in the civilian environment was increasing from each job that I went to, but my core responsibilities were still engineering. So then I was with Natural Power for about 6 years. I really enjoyed the job. I enjoyed the flexibility of it. I enjoyed sometimes being out in the fresh air, but when it's snowing or raining, it's not that good. And you do have to maintain a level of fitness, because even though the turbines have got lifts in them, the modern wind turbines, when you're carrying out maintenance, you're isolating the electricity and then you have to climb the turbines, and that's pretty hard work. So from there, I was authorized under Engie's safety rules to manage Engie's wind farms on behalf of them as the client. And that's when I was first exposed to Engie as a company. I thought the safety rules were very good. So I applied for a role as a health and safety advisor within Engie, and the environment that I would be working in wasn't the wind farms that I was used to, but it's still engineering. It's for an entity called Urban Energy. That's the sector that I work in. It's split into two different areas, which are district energy and community energy, that do very similar things. It's basically generation of heat through boilers and combined heat and power engines. That's piped off to big buildings, and also chilled water from chillers for air conditioning systems in large buildings like university buildings, hospitals and shopping centres, etc. So the little map that's shown there shows you where we have most of our urban energy sites, some quite important ones at the Excel in London, the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. So I started off, my boss brought me into the business because he was on his own, he needed support. Knew I had an engineering background, so the combination of the health and safety NEBOSH qualifications, the engineering background, and the recent experience that I had with wind industry, electrical generation, all stood me in good stead to slot quite nicely into a health and safety role in an engineering environment. So if you are targeting working in the health and safety sector, it's always a good idea, although it's a generalist skill, to try and align your aspirations with the experience that you already have. And from there, you can move, as you've seen in the sectors that I've worked in, you can move from one area to another and just have a transition in a phased approach, rather than trying to jump into an environment that you're not really used to or you don't have very much experience in. So my boss and myself then started implementing Engie's health and safety management system on all of these different sites, from Edinburgh down to Southampton. And we've made some pretty significant improvements in health and safety, implementing the health and safety management systems on all of these sites. So that was a brief overshot of my career. So I've just got some little advisory slides now about what I think would help you guys and girls going forward when you're transitioning from the military into civistry, and if you want to start a health and safety career or eventually transition into a health and safety career. So training and competency is obviously very important. As I said, I started off with a NEBOSH general certificate, but you can specialise if you want to go into construction or fire safety. So you can do a NEBOSH general certificate, construction certificate, or a fire safety certificate, and that will get you Tech IOSH accreditation. So it all depends on the sector that you want to go into. So they're available on resettlement through the CTP. Then you can transition if you want to, and it's advisory that you do, to chartered status in IOSH through gaining a NEBOSH diploma, or through an NVQ route, an NVQ diploma. Once you've completed your diploma, you'll get upgraded to grad IOSH status, and then you have to go through a process to get your chartered status. Obviously, you won't get there straight away. It takes a bit of time, but if you go into a role with an NEBOSH general certificate or one of the other ones, most companies will assist you with your ongoing training. Financially, they may well pay for all of your training. So if you get the first stepping stone in place, most companies will assist you on that route anyway. If you don't have any qualifications, or you're already in civistry, the last note on there is, if you're currently in a role which isn't health and safety, most companies have health and safety committees. And if you become a volunteer in that health and safety committee, that can lead to training, and it can also enhance your knowledge, and it could open up a sideways move for you. Memberships. So I would always advise, before you leave, seek accreditation externally. So if you have a NEBOSH general certificate, the first thing I would advise you do is get your Tech IOSH status. This will sit well on your CV. The second thing is, if you're an engineer, as I joined the Society of Operations Engineers, and that gave me Engie Tech accreditation. And then the last one on there about networking is, I strongly recommend that you get yourself and your CV on LinkedIn, because it will help people network with you, and you become visible to employers and recruitment agencies. Leading on from recruitment agencies, there are good and bad recruitment agencies, and I've experienced both of them. So there's a few caveats here. So, do the people you're speaking to understand the industry and sector that they are recruiting for? I started off with Astute Technical Recruitment. They were started off by ex-naval engineers, so they understood the recruitment process, and they also understood the people who they were recruiting and trying to transfer into civilian engineering environments. The second comment on there is, do the people you're speaking to understand the industry you're currently working in, and are they able to identify your transferable skills? Quick little story about that one. When I was looking for a job prior to leaving the Navy, I was looking at some offshore roles on oil rigs, oil platforms. I applied for a job that I thought would sit really well with me based on my CV and my skills. Didn't get a response to it. So I contacted the recruitment agency and I asked them for some feedback. I said, I'm happy to get negative feedback. I just need to understand where I'm making mistakes. That's always an advisable thing to do. And the recruitment agency told me that I didn't have any offshore experience. I was 22 years in the Royal Navy, and I think about 14 years were actually at sea. So all my sea survival skills were in place, firefighting and emergency training that I'd done day to day. I ended up as a firefighting trainer myself. So recruitment agencies, while they have a use, and there are good and bad ones, it's just a little warning. So, things like that do happen. They completely overlook your transferable skills where they should be actually trying to identify them. And then the last point on there is, are you provided a dedicated point of contact who can get to understand your marketable qualities? So if you're in a recruitment agency, it's always worthwhile trying to get a point of contact who you can actually speak to on a regular basis, and they will start to understand your needs, your marketable qualities. And then I think interview tips. So if you're going to go straight into a health and safety role, or that's your aspiration. I mean, I transitioned into a health and safety role, very similar to Sean. So I found it a bit easier. But within the armed forces, the understanding of primary and secondary legislation is there when you get to a more senior rank, but it's not well communicated. So it's definitely a requirement in Civvy Street. You need to have an understanding of ISO standards. So 45,001, 9001 and 14,001 standards, because all businesses and sectors require to have these management standards. And a critical one is behavioural safety and human factors, because they are the hardest things to influence in health and safety. Incident and accident investigation, if you've never been involved with one, it's always worthwhile doing a bit of research before you go to an interview. And then the final one on there is reporting systems, which include leading and lagging indicators. Now, leading indicators are things that we want people to report. So safety observations, so they've seen something, they've put it right, they've reported it. And lagging indicators are where things have gone wrong. And what we do with the statistical data from the reporting system influences how we make improvements. So if you understand some of those basic concepts in an interview stage, it should stand you in good stead. So that is the end of my little presentation. So again, if anybody would like that in a PDF format, I'm quite happy for that to be sent through to you. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Over to you, Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I learned quite a bit there about the different divisions with Engie. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. My name is Claire Preston, and like Rob, I work for Engie. Engie is obviously a very large employer in the UK. We employ over 17,000 people alone in regeneration, facilities management, and energy. Where I sit in the business, I work for the regeneration side of so construction. So I cover an area from they call it the central region, from Scarborough all the way down to Hereford, including the West Midlands. So quite a large area. We have, as I said, not just on my region, but I'm here to speak on behalf of other regions. We're so diverse. We're working in hospitals, doing facilities management. We're doing service contracts, so where a local authority will outsource all the council delivery to us as well. And then we do regeneration of local authorities. So, for instance, one of our large clients is Leeds City Council, where we've got a contract to refurb 6,000 properties in Leeds and maintain them. And then we also do new build scheme sites as well for a lot of housing associations, private developers, and again, local authorities. So a very, certainly for me, a very large area. I've been working with Billforce now for probably a couple of years, where we have offered work placements. lately, which is music to my ears, there's a real big focus now from Engie to employ those leaving the forces. So that's why I thought it'd be a great opportunity to come on this call today. Just only last week, I got issued the vacancy list for Engie, and which was great because there was a hold on recruitment due to COVID. There was, and there is, sorry, about 80 positions available all throughout the country. So, you know, things are picking up really. So and we're in a position to start recruitment. So I would recommend that you go on the Engie website and have a look at all the very diverse roles that we offer. We're also, you know, we'll be able to give anyone that would be interested in some work experience on one of our sites or within a sector of your choice. So and you know, that's where we think is key. You know, try before you buy, have a look round, you know, see if it's for you. We have a team a bit like the CTP, but obviously less qualified, that give employability skills. We can do that virtually, CV writing advice, mock interviews, they're all trained. So again, we're available for that should anybody wish to take us up on it. We just put a bid in last week for the Kickstart scheme, which is obviously the Chancellor's scheme where he's investing £2 billion. So we put an offering in there for 200 work placements over the next 18 months. So anyone can come on board with us for 25 hours a week and receive national minimum wage as well. So we're very hopeful we'll be successful on that bid. I'm working on a couple of very large schemes at the moment with particular focus around forces. Roosley Power Station. Engie bought the power station 2 years ago through planning. We're just about to knock down the old cooling towers. The scheme planning's all going through now for like 2,000 houses, factory units, and we're going to be in Roosley for 20 years. I'm working with Helper Squaddy in Roosley about working on a programme to get people into employment. Those again leaving. So, you know, to say that we're going to be on a scheme for 20 years is just absolutely fantastic. We've also just formed a new company called Vivo. It's a joint venture with Engie and Serco, and we're bidding for an awful lot of defence work as well. That bid actually goes in today, and that would be to do responsible for all the repairs and maintenance for all the properties in the UK, Northern Ireland, and Scotland, I believe. Yeah, so lots of you know, work in the pipeline, and as I said, a big focus to get those transitioning, you know, to come and look for jobs, and because we have got plenty now going forward in the pipeline. So again, any questions, you can come to me, or if you want pointing in the right direction. I don't promise to know everybody in Engie, all 17,000, but I've got contacts in each of the regions. So we really want to, you know, start working with you all and offer meaningful work placements, you know, with a view to an outcome, i.e. a job at the end of it. So thank you for your time.
Claire, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Am I able to have Sean and Robin put their screens on? And their mute off? Are you there, Sean? He's hovering over the button. I'm sure he'll join us in a second.
Sorry, just trying to get unmuted and put the camera on. Sorry.
That's it. We got there. Just to be clear, we were actually all on unmute. We were talking away before this started, and I think we all got muted. So hence the palaver trying to get us started. Okay, listen. Thank you everybody for their presentations. A lot of detail there, which is fantastic. Exactly what the candidates are looking for. If anybody listening does have a question, just please put your camera on and feel free to jump in and ask questions at any point, or write in the message box and we can ask them on your behalf. I think first question, Sean, is what instrument did you play? 27 years,
the trombone. Yeah, the trombone.
The trombone, okay.
Yeah.
Can you sing?
Lots of stuff at Buckingham Palace, as you can imagine.
Right, okay. No, well, good for you. Are you still playing at the moment?
Oh yeah, it's a hobby. So
The neighbours love you.
They do. They even broke all the windows in my house so they could hear me better.
Right, okay. I can see Joanne Lee's typing away, but I think we'll kickstart with some questions. So, Sean, you obviously offered some links into Wilson James, which are fantastic. So where there's a big geographical presence for Wilson James and where they cover many sectors, that's going to be most helpful. We discussed offline, and I thought it might be worth repeating it, that kind of under your, well, almost under a safety guise, you've worked in quite a few parts of the business.
Yeah.
You find that safety role is transient, it's quite fluid, it allows you to move about the sector?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the construction logistics part of our business, we're not actually building anything, but we're an enabler for the construction firms, you know, the electricians, the plumbers, the dry liners, and all of that. We enable them to be able to do their work. So our health and safety role in that is, you know, it's more of a logistics thing rather than knowing about build process, if you like. So we wouldn't tell bricklayers, we wouldn't be looking at how they do things specifically, or electricians or whatever. But the skills that you've got, that you pick up in your NEBOSH general certificate, and then further study into, you know, to get your experience on site, is then when you can apply for your tech IOSH. But general, I find health and safety is 99% common sense. It really is. And a lot of people just need that boost of confidence that they're probably doing it right, because if it looks like it's wrong, it is going to be wrong. There's no two ways about it. So and don't be afraid to challenge people if you think that they're doing something wrong, even if they're in a trade that you know nothing about, because if it looks like it's not going to be correct, then it probably won't be. But yeah, the three divisions that we've got, the skills are very transferable. If you've done the general certificate, especially, it's a real catch-all, I found. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And Robin, you mentioned if anybody's currently in a role in any sector, you mentioned that if you have a favouritism towards safety, if you're looking at it as your next career opportunity, then you mentioned to move over onto some safety committees. So could you just explain further what that is?
Well, most organisations, depending on what their service is or sector, will have a health and safety committee where employees' representatives can have an open forum discussion with members of management. So, for instance, if you use Engie as an example, we have energy centres all over the country, so all the way from Edinburgh down to Southampton. So we have a committee that meets once a quarter. Myself and my boss Kevin set this up because they didn't have one in place when we started. And what it does is it enables once a quarter representatives from each of those energy centres around the country to meet in a central point. We'll put an agenda out with health and safety topics. We ask them to submit their own items on the agenda that they want to discuss. And it's obviously health and safety led. So we get together, we have the meeting, we generally do it near a location for one of the other energy centres, so we can take people from other areas of the country and show them other energy centres, so people can see the different standards that are available on different energy centres. So we have a new build one in Newcastle, and when we take people around there, they get a little bit jealous because they see that it's brand new, shiny, and some of the ones in sort of Leicester and Birmingham are sort of built in the 70s or 80s, and they're kind of falling around. And sometimes it's lack of ownership from the individuals, but it's a way of networking internally, discussing health and safety at an operational level for people who previously may not have had any exposure. So it's a voluntary role to become a health and safety committee member. We call it the Safety Action Group in Engie, in Urban Energy, and what it does is it once a quarter they get together. They have an influence on how we can improve things, which is always a good thing. we get to hear from them. We get to hear about their concerns. And that all gets fed back into a report. It's distributed to senior management. So it's open and honest, and it gives people a certain level of influence over change, which is always a good thing. But more positively, what it can do is it can enhance your CV. Member of a health and safety committee, improvements made through the health and safety committee can be added to your CV as well.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Thank you. I've got another question just on that, Robin, but I'll ask Thomas Parker's question. Thomas, you're welcome to come on the screen and ask, but you've typed out here, if you are you able to go into a full-time study, then a degree may work for you. I personally think getting employment experience is key, gives you a wider view, and you're able to apply knowledge gained. Do both of you agree with that?
Yeah. That was what that's what I wrote.
That was you.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Sean? Is your comment?
Well, that was my comment. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think if you're going into the world of health and safety, to come out with a degree is great. I mean, and one of my friends did exactly that, and he was one of I think he was the second youngest person ever to get his CMIOSH. And but you need that life experience and the experience of the world of work where health and safety is part of your remit, and I think that site experience and is invaluable. To just have a paper qualification, it doesn't get you everywhere. It doesn't get you what you may think. You go for an interview and you'll be up against people who've had boots on the ground, have experience of the particular world of work that you may want to go into. And even though you may have the degree and they may only have a diploma, they probably would get the job over and above you because of experience.
It's a very pragmatic profession, isn't it? And I think it's fully weighted with people skills as well. It's very forward facing.
Yeah.
Robin,
sorry,
can
I just say for those, it's for those that are listening, because they won't afterwards they won't see the chat box. So just to reiterate, Tom's question was, if you had a choice at the beginning of your transition, would you start with a degree within health and safety, or would you stick with the general certificates and get experience and then go for the degree? Sorry, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And we've got a comment here from Carl. So a response to that, I think, from Carl. I've already obtained from RIMI TIFI course a certificate in occupational health and safety, British Safety Council level 3. Is this similar to NEBOSH General?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
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 And Dan's asked, potential for a job in facilities management. Would you look down this route, or is this a route further away from health and safety than he would wish for?
No, I did FM at the Olympics for 3 years, working for Lend-Lease, and it was a really great sort of thing to do with regard to my health and safety experience. So working in FM is absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. It was a very positive experience for me.
Okay, Robin, a quick question. Under COVID, then, how has the role changed?
Teams meetings, lots of teams meetings. Well, what we have to do is within Engie, we have a lot of guidance. We have a coronavirus portal where all of our current guidance and requirements are uploaded, and it's a portal accessible to all employees in Engie. We develop risk assessments for various different areas, because Engie is a massive portfolio of different sectors. So I work in an engineering environment. So if I use my environment as a focus, we have a generating station in Leeds that's providing heating and essential services to the Leeds General Infirmary. So therefore, the primary concern was the operation of that plant needed to be maintained, otherwise it would expose the hospital to outages. And that would then expose patients to, potential loss of life, because we need to provide the energy to the hospital. So it was the protection of the workforce that was a critical thing for us. So putting control measures in place that protected the workforce. So we had to put control measures where contractors coming onto site, essential contractors, were separated from the people who were running the plant by physical barriers. and other control measures. So there's been a lot of work involved in it at all levels of the business. But obviously, it depends on the sector that you're working in. So the sector I'm working in are providing essential services to different areas of the country. So it's been challenging, but I think it's been well managed, to be honest with you, generally.
No, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. And for you, Sean?
Very, very similar. We have a portal in Teams, actually, COVID-19 response, and we've got various files that are there for everybody to. A notification will go out that there's been an update to a risk assessment when government policy changes or PHE policy changes, and we reflect that in updated risk assessments. I think we're on for general COVID response now we're on version 10. So things are changing all the time, and we've as a department we keep up with that. And the head of health and safety for Wilson James will do a document update, and change notification will go out, and those things. So we've got risk assessments for office work, for general stuff, for non-contact temperature testing, vulnerable people, all things like that. We've got a whole suite of documents that are updated, on a weekly basis generally.
Okay, and a question to you both: where health and safety is deemed the responsibility of everybody, do you still see the role of health and safety being a requirement on site?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think health and safety is everyone's responsibility. Obviously, it's defined in the Health and Safety at Work Act in Sections 2 and Section 7, employees and employees' responsibilities. Good tip for everybody on the call there. I generally find that even though it is everyone's responsibility, if it's not policed, standards can slip. So if you do a health and safety training course, it's generally there is a requirement to do a refresher or redo the course every 3 years, because legislation changes, legislation gets updated. So it's very similar. It's a peaks and troughs scenario. So you'll go on a site and do an audit, things will improve, and then you go back on the site later on, things have dipped. So as long as the trough doesn't get too deep. But yeah, it's everyone's responsibility, but getting the message through to certain people sometimes is the difficulty. So if you go back to the slideshow I had on before, human behaviour and human factors are probably a very critical area on people on the call to focus on. Understanding errors, human error and human factors in health and safety is a very, very key area.
Sorry, Sean. Yeah.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree with Robin there. We've found exactly the same. If you don't have people at site level who are willing to take ownership of health and safety, then every one of our sites has a physical site health and safety file, which needs documents updating as and when. And if it's not maintained and the message isn't put out there properly, it all falls apart. And it's actual ownership at site level, which is a really critical thing. So we put people through, site managers through IOSH Managing Safely, the 3-day course there, and that sort of opens a lot of their eyes to not just paying lip service to health and safety. They'll say, oh, it's our primary thing is the health and safety of all of our team, but then it gets put on the back burner when clients are banging on about this and that and the other, and they've got staffing issues and wage issues and other things that really take over their day to day. The safeties can sometimes just be forgotten about for a couple of weeks, and then we come in as a safety team and do our inspections and whatever. It's a scheduled, we have a schedule for the whole year for the whole company. And so people are well versed in when we're going to arrive, and we don't like to be seen as the people who are there with a clipboard saying, no, you've got this wrong, no, you've got that wrong. We're part of the support network, and that's how we want to be viewed by all of our employees as part of the support team, so that health and safety guys, when they turn up on site, the team, they're well respected and people aren't scared of what we're going to do.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that last comment, because health and safety professionals used to be called health and safety officers. And I don't think that title helped. So they've now transitioned to health and safety advisors or health and safety managers. And we are a support function for businesses. We are not there to go in and cause a lot of work for people from an administrative perspective. We're there to support them. We're there to, yes, we have to highlight where gaps are, but what we should do without just highlighting a gap is give people the information and direct them to how they can close those gaps and how they can become compliant rather than become non-compliant.
Exactly that. Exactly. Yeah.
And if you were to try and design a fresh new health and safety manager, what would a good one look like?
Well, I don't know really. I mean, that's a bit of a broad.
Yeah,
statement.
I think for me, I would want somebody with experience. I mean, the youngest member of our team is only 26, and he started with Wilson James at 18 as a security officer at DP World down in Essex, the big container port, and he's worked his way through from over the past 8 years or so, and he got his NEBOSH qualification earlier this year. He'd previously got his Irish Managing Safely, and he was like an assistant, but now he's an advisor. And because he's only young, but he's got 8 years worth of experience involved in all aspects of work in our security division, and it stood him really well. It stood him in good stead, So I think an experienced person is one of the first things you would look for if you were recruiting from within your own company. So
I think as well. I think from not necessarily from a qualification or an experience perspective, but from a character perspective. I think you need to have very good written and verbal communication skills, because part of the role is to actually deliver training and information. So you need to have a personable character that people can engage with. So the kind of person that somebody would want to speak to or would want to seek advice from, rather than they have to seek advice. So it's somebody who can be seen as a trustworthy advisor. So I think character is important as well. So you need to have the right communication skills, which I think you already have in the military anyway. I mean, it's kind of bred into you, but you need to be amenable. You need to have good communication skills with people.
Okay, and just to challenge a comment that you both made, just on behalf of David Duncan, who's listening, how do you get that experience? You both referenced having experience. Is it having general construction experience or general safety experience? So before you become a safety manager, just how are you supposed to achieve that?
Well, I think if I just kind of review what the slideshow that I put forward was, that I transitioned from an engineering role with health and safety involved in the Royal Navy. I then transitioned into an engineering role in Civvy Street in power stations initially, where part of the role is to actually be involved with health and safety, so reviewing of risk assessments and method statements, managing contractors, and then it's a transition, isn't it? It's not an instant jump from one area to another. Some people can manage that. It wasn't my initial aspiration wasn't to be a health and safety advisor or a health and safety manager. I just moved into that. It was a natural transition. From your military role, and again, going back to the slideshow that I had, was I would always advise people to look where they are working at the moment and see where they can transfer fairly seamlessly to in Civvy Street. There will be roles where you can actually go into fairly seamlessly. Like I said, the power station for me was a ship that didn't go to sea. It was exactly the same kind of environment, the same engineering technology. It's just a different way of dealing with things. The civilian environment and the military environment have two different approaches. And I think that's some people, it didn't bother me. One day I was in the Navy, the next day I was working in a power station. I didn't fight it. I wasn't institutionalized. Some people struggle with that. But I think the key thing for me is trying to identify an area to transition into that would be fairly comfortable, and from there the world is your oyster. You can use the experience in that next role to move to another role, and I did 22 years. Sean did 27, I think he said. That was a career path. The civilian environment is different. It's a bit more cutthroat. I stayed in a couple of jobs for short periods of time. It's not frowned upon. If the job's not right for you, you move on and you move to another role.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with just about everything Robin said there, because it sounds like we've had quite a similar, even though we're very diverse in our type of work environment, so to speak. We've got a very similar path that we've taken, and I think that being in the forces, Wilson James as an employer actively search out, employ ex-forces personnel, ex-service personnel. And we've got, as I say, we've got the divisions for security and construction logistics, and they sit very well with service leavers. So we've got a very, and when I say security, we don't do stagging on. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about corporate stuff that is very high quality. We've got some guys who work for Wilson James who work in banking in the City of London. They wear £3,000 suits provided by the client because the client wants them to look a certain way, and they've got a very, very nice job, thank you very much, with great rates of pay. Our construction logistics guys, that fits very, very well with service leavers due to the fact that it's all about organisation and getting things to the coalface for the right people at the right time, and in the right place. Things like that, and that's where you would start in my area of business to then gain experience and take responsibility for health and safety in those roles that you would initially be going into. Utilize, and if people know that you've got an EBOSH general certificate or something like that, they love it. I mean, it's a real selling point to get any job anywhere, and you would then be approached by the company safety team to maybe give them a hand and be a health and safety champion, or run the health and safety forum for them on that particular site and put reports in. We have the health and safety champions within Wilson James have there's a little bit of incentive in as much as that if they fulfill certain criteria for us, they get an extra day's paid holiday a year, and that's been agreed right from the very top of the business. So and that's just because they are taking on a bit more responsibility outside the normal remit. So
a few more questions that have come in. One on behalf of, it's a very good question from Thomas Parker. So one on behalf of the service leavers. He's currently, he has a year left on camp, so he will have some free time just whilst he's in these last few months of the RAF. What would you recommend apart from the NEBOSH course to undertake? And Clinton Williams has very kindly responded back saying consider doing an internal auditor's course. Is there any other advice that you would give for our service leavers in that position?
Again, it depends on the environment that you want to work in. So I work in engineering and process safety. You can do a Kelvin Topset 3-day lead investigators course. That will sit well on a CV. You can do because part of your role is delivering training. If you've got training qualifications already through your role. But if not, I would suggest doing something like an MVQ3 in education. You can do train the trainers courses.
Yeah.
A good one would be IOSH, working and managing safely, train the trainer. We've done that. We were kind of going down that route anyway, but we did it because of COVID-19, because we can deliver the working safely via Teams because it's only a 1-day course. So again, there's if you're working in an engineering environment, there's an EBOSH certificate in process safety. So there's a lot of stuff, but you need to tailor it to your aspiration of the sector that you're going to go into.
Yeah.
And what if you just don't know? What if you don't know what sectors exist?
The ones that I've just said is if you stick to general stuff, education MVQ, there are lots and lots of different courses available. Train the trainer courses. Like I say, one of the primary roles of a health and safety professional is to deliver health and safety training. So
yeah. So I would suggest something like first aid, fire marshal as well, IOSH managing safely. Even if you've got a NEBOSH general certificate, Irish Managing Safely is worth having because of the ground it covers at site level and looking after people rather than knowing a lot about you know, the ins and outs of health and safety law and all of that. But yeah, so anything that you may be expected to do at site level, and you can then go in, you know, be a first aider, be a fire marshal, look at doing the trainer thing courses. Absolutely, totally agree with Robin on that. Yeah.
Again, there's other stuff, but there's a cost behind all of this. So, you know, you could end up with a long list of stuff, but your employer should provide a lot of this for you if you go in at a certain level. But you know, again, depending on the environment you're in, fire risk assessment training. So
yeah.
Anything that you are required to develop a risk assessment for, you should have some sort of competency behind you, whether it be experience or an accredited certification. So fire risk assessment is a complex one. I needed it. I did a week-long course with the Fire Protection Association. So I do fire risk assessments on our energy centres. There's a lot of stuff that you could do. You need to be mindful of how much money spent, how much you've got available. I don't know whether the forces still do the enhanced learning credit scheme, but that's an option for financing some of the training as well.
And just on cost and money in the full topic, a good questions come in there, just in terms of what would be a considered starting salary in a health and safety professional role.
Depends where you are, depends what sector you're in, depends how much experience you've got. So, yeah, it's.
So if you were to leave with, say, 20 years experience, just as a starting point.
20 years experience in health and safety?
In the military. So you're saying mid-40s as you're coming into industry, what would you be looking for?
It's a question that is such a broad spectrum because of the relevant experience. If you're transitioning into an industry, as I did, I went from engineering to engineering. I had all the experience that I needed. I'd enhanced that through the NEBOSH certification. So I would look for parity initially.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So whatever you're on when you leave, look for parity when you start a new role, because I don't think you should be too aspirational with your salary until you've got experience in civic.
Yeah.
Okay, no, good. Our questions come in from Carl just about gaining the Tech IOSH. David, thank you very much. He sent him a link in terms of how you apply and what information you need to present. And I think there's been some dialogue between them on that one. Claire, you raised a point which probably had everybody's ears sticking up and everybody sitting upright in their seats in terms of any roles that are available to look on your website.
Yes.
So you are actively recruiting at the moment? We
are, yes. Each week I get we all do get a vacancy list, and I've obviously made. I went through it all for the whole of the UK. So in preparation for this call, as I said, there was, you know, certainly over 50 jobs, all split all over the UK in different divisions. It's a very easy process. You just go on to jobs.engie.co.uk, but if you just Google Engie jobs, and it literally is a matter of submitting your CV, so it's not like an online questionnaire. So the process is quite simple, and then they go through. We've got a central recruitment department. They monitor, filter through the CVs, and then issue them out to the hiring manager for interview.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and there's support and guidance in terms of just what that looks like, and just because we do get some of our recruits saying I haven't been interviewed in over 25 years, so we'll duly help them there anyway.
Yeah.
But that's taken into account, isn't it, when you're interviewing somebody? Just their
background. Of course,
and,
yes. And as I said, you know, I've got a team of 6 that have all got the qualifications that are able to go into schools and colleges, for instance, to teach interview skills and mock interview. So if there's anyone that's just wanting an hour of any of the team's time, that's certainly not a problem.
Okay, fantastic. And in terms of, there's it's just a point in time, isn't it? But I think one of the questions asked is, what does a typical safety team look like on a site? And I think the answer is typically is just how big is the site. If it's a small £20 million project, it'll be a visiting resource. Whereas if it's I think somebody mentioned the Olympic Village, it will be a team with a senior leader and safety managers within it. Engie do recruit at every level.
Yeah, we certainly do. I mean, as I said, there's just so many diverse roles. I mean, we've got cleaners on this vacancy list all the way up to like a regional managing director, so in all different aspects of the business. So yeah, and it's really refreshing to see it coming out on a weekly basis now. Okay,
listen, thank you so much for that, Claire. One final question. The questions keep coming in, but I'll cap it here because we said we would take an hour this morning. Dan has asked, is consultancy something that you would advise?
Not without experience.
Yeah, you would need a hell of a lot of experience to be considered to be a consultant, and you'd need a CMI-OSH minimum as a consultant.
Okay, no, brilliant, really detailed answer. So thank you for that.
I mean, sorry, Angela, we're in the process of looking at the new Hinkley Point power station just outside in the West Country there, and I think that they're going to be recruiting something like a dozen health and safety managers for that place. So if anybody's out down in the west, out west towards Bristol, then I'd really consider looking at that scope of works there. Wilson James themselves, we're involved heavily in that, and we'll be recruiting quite a lot of staff for that particular role, that particular job.
Right, fantastic tip that you heard it here first, everyone. And the same with the 50 or so roles that Claire's got over at Engie as well. So this session has been absolutely fantastic. The questions will keep coming in, but Caroline can just connect everybody to you, Robin, Claire and Sean. All the advice that you gave us, the presentation, Robin, was fantastic. Even I wrote down some of the notes there, so thank you. So if you don't mind, we'll share that. And again, the advice that you gave, Sean, was just brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And I'll pass back to Caroline, if she's there.
I am indeed. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. As always, an invaluable insight into health and safety and a great resource for all our candidates. So I'll round it up here, and just to say that our next virtual career chat is on the 1st of October, and it's an Amy-led career chat, and they're going to discuss 3 core disciplines from their business: facilities management, so Dan, you may be interested in that, project management, and leadership and management. All ex-military, so they'll be sharing their transition and a day in the life of, followed by, of course, our fantastic Q&A. So have a wonderful day. The sun is shining. I think that's nationwide, so enjoy.
Yay.
And, yay. Even in Scotland. Sorry. So have a wonderful day, and yeah, just get in touch and support as much as possible. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.